Lord to me today is this. Satan is crafty. Temptation is subtle. God is good, and prayer is strong. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. You knew there was more. Let's deal with this Satan thing first. I am interested in the nature and theology of evil. Questions like, why does evil exist in the first place? Yeah, sure, I know about free will and needing to have a real choice and not just a baby choice. But is there, in fact, a devil, an adversary, an enemy, an incarnation of evil who wanders the world and wishes ill on human beings? Yes. It wasn't a call for a vote. I mean, to me that doesn't seem fair, since the incarnation of good in the person of Jesus Christ has already ascended. So is there an evil analog to the Holy Spirit? And why do people choose evil anyway? What's in it for them? Are we raising a nation of sociopathic, conscience-free people? How does evil operate? Is it sort of floating around free form in the universe, waiting to be attracted to a person like cat hair? Evil, is it a wave or a particle? Physicists like that. Jesus meets Satan in the wilderness today, according to the gospel. Did he meet a real human being or just an idea? See, as far as the incarnation of evil theory, I can argue pretty compellingly on both sides, for and against. In other words, I have opinions, but I don't know. I know there's real evil in the world. I think there is a dark side to life that we can choose to buy into. And I think that failing to take responsibility for our own actions is the first step on that slippery slope to succumbing to temptation. Flip Wilson taught an entire generation of people to say, oh, the devil made me do it. Yeah. When we were caught doing something wrong. Well, I think that's a lie. If there is an adversary, I don't think he can make us do anything. At the same time, it is absolutely true that temptation happens. Whether it's from the Old Testament notion of a God-created adversary to test our boundaries, or the New Testament idea of the devil as a slanderer out to harm human beings, or the Jewish mystical conception of the evil urge that everyone is susceptible to, or Augustine's pessimistic construct of original sin. Everyone seems to be able to agree that temptation happens. And we do have choices about how we respond. I believe that our mission as Christians is to become like Jesus. And this Lent, I believe that we are offered a glimpse of how extremely human Jesus is, how alike we are, how we are related. I think a lot of my basic optimism about human nature comes from knowing that God understands what it's like to have arthritis. God knows what it's like to have aching feet or a broken heart, what it's like to be disappointed and angry, urgently hungry, lovable and loved, afraid, tired, hurt, funny, dear. God knows about temptation from the inside and will stand with us as we struggle through our own wilderness. And that's the kind of companion I want by my side. Someone with experience. Jesus had it. Take today. Isn't it interesting to find out what Jesus finds tempting? I think we tend to think of him as more or less kind of above all that messy human temptation stuff, you know, the sinless wonder. And yet the whole point of temptation is that it's made up of attractive choices. For example, if Satan came to me and offered me fast cars and Cuban cigars in exchange for my soul, I would not have any difficulty at all saying, no, thank you very much, just run along. If he offered me a date with Johnny Depp and a whole cheesecake, it might be a different story. You gotta do these things. My point here is that Jesus really was tempted by what Satan offered him. What an insight into his human nature and how subtle his adversary. Look, the first thing Matthew says about Jesus is that he was hungry. Yeah, I believe it. I think the 40 days is metaphorical to remind us of Noah on the ark and Moses on Sinai and all the other 40s that have to do with covenant in the Bible. But I think he was fasting and praying for a good many days, and I believe he was hungry. Satan offers him bread, but not really. He holds up a stone and paints a mental picture of bread. Hot rye bread, fresh from the oven. Crusty sourdough, sweet French bread, warm winter wheat. You getting it? And he says, you can do this, Jesus. Come on, show me your stuff. Wait. Was Jesus tempted? What do you bet? Not just to alleviate his own hunger, but for all the poor people who went to sleep hungry every day, for the children in the streets, for everyone who needed to eat something now. He could open a bakery and give bread away. The thing about the adversary, though, is that everything he offers us ends up being fake, a false face. Jesus remembers how this works. We're hungry for food, we eat. 4 hours later, we need to do it all again. Even miracle bread from a stone only heals the hunger of the belly. It does not heal the hunger of the heart. God did not take on flesh and blood to pitch his tent among us just to give us something physical to eat. It's our job to feed each other. God came to us in order to feed our spirits with relationship. Today's sandwich is tomorrow's memory. Today's conversation with God feeds us forever. Thanks for the offer, Jesus says, but I'll just pick up a bagel at the corner deli and save us both a lot of effort. Second temptation, miracles. Satan says, boy, if you want them to believe in you, show them something. Step off this steeple and float. Let them watch you float all the way to the ground. They won't be able to argue with that. Think of the souls you'll save. Once again, though, it's a false front. A beautiful box with nothing inside it. This promise of Satan's. Because miracles don't give rise to faith. They're wonderful. We love them. They get our attention. But like that bread, their effect is not permanent. The more miracles we see, the more we want. Instead, what fosters faith is our relationship with God. If you were in love with a great singer, would you insist that they audition for you every morning just to be sure they've still got it? Would you ask Picasso to just sketch a little something for you every morning at coffee just to prove he's still Picasso? When we really love someone, we don't ask them to prove themselves every day. We treasure what we know in our heart to be true, not what have you done for me lately. It's the same with God. There are not enough miracles in the world to satisfy the skeptic. And the lover doesn't need any miracles at all in order to be in love. No, Jesus says, no miracles today, thank you. God doesn't need to prove himself to me. For the third temptation, Satan pulls out the big guns. He says, look, Jesus, if you will work for me, I will put you in a position to make sure that justice is done. I'll give you charge over all the powers of the world. It's a big one. No more wars, no more hate crimes, no more corruption, no more persecution. But Jesus knows that he cannot work for the prince of lies and continue to tell the truth. We can't give our hearts over to the reign of God in the world and then go to work for the opposition. No matter how good Jesus' motives are, eventually working for Satan will ruin all his efforts. No thanks, Jesus says. Always polite. No thanks, he says. I'll just stick with God's agenda, and I will be able to do everything I need to with his power. Remember our premises? Satan is crafty, temptation is subtle, God is good, prayer is strong. Everything that Satan tempted Jesus with was a good thing on the face of it. And in the end, he did end up creating bread from nothing to feed 5,000 people, more than once. And he did end up doing miracles that did foster faith. And he did come into the kind of power that does do justice in the world. But he did it in God's time and on God's behalf, in ways that would lead to permanent good instead of temporary pleasure. Do me a favor. Spend 15 minutes this week thinking about what you find tempting. And if it's your neighbor's spouse, remember that part is right out. Think about what it is about what tempts you, and have that discussion with God about how you and God together can achieve what you want in a way that builds up. How do we learn the difference between things that lead to permanent change instead of temporary pleasure? We remember, God is good, prayer is strong. Confidence and conversation are two keys to the kind of relationship we're striving for. God is standing right by, ready to talk. So keep listening. That's the good news for today.